The Samsung Galaxy S27 series is already generating serious hype, but one leak in particular could be the biggest camera story Samsung has had in years. And no, it's not just another 200MP sensor headline. According to the latest Galaxy S27 Ultra camera leaks, Samsung may finally bring back a feature fans have been asking for since the Galaxy S9 days, a variable aperture camera. If this rumor is accurate, the Galaxy S27 Ultra won't just be a spec bump. It could be a real shift in how Samsung handles low light, portraits, highlights, and even video using hardware, not just processing. So here's what's being reported, what it could mean in real life, and why this might be the most important Samsung camera upgrade in a long time. Let's start with the big claim. A Chinese tipster, Smart Pikachu, suggests the Galaxy S27 Ultra will use a triple camera setup and the main camera will be a 200MP sensor, likely the Samsung ISOCELL HP6 paired with a variable aperture system. That variable aperture part is the key, because megapixels are easy to market. But aperture control is what can change how photos actually look, and the rumored triple camera lineup doesn't stop there. Alongside the 200MP main camera, the Galaxy S27 Ultra camera setup is expected to include a 50MP ultra-wide camera and a 50MP telephoto camera with 5x optical zoom. So instead of stacking more and more lenses, Samsung may be simplifying the hardware while upgrading the parts that matter most: the main sensor, the ultra-wide quality, and the long zoom. Now let's talk about what variable aperture actually does, and why people keep requesting it. Aperture is basically the size of the lens opening. A wider aperture lets more light hit the sensor, and a narrower aperture lets less light in. But it's not just about brightness. A variable aperture system allows the camera to physically adjust that opening depending on what you're shooting. In bright daylight, a narrower aperture can help control exposure and reduce blown highlights. It can also keep more of your scene in focus, useful for landscapes, architecture, and group shots where you don't want just one face sharp and everything else soft. In low light, a wider aperture can let in more light, which reduces noise, improves shutter speed, and can deliver more natural-looking photos without the phone needing to aggressively clean up the image. And then there's portraits. People love portrait mode, but everyone also knows the problem. Fake blur can look messy around hair, glasses, hands, or complicated backgrounds. A wider aperture creates real optical separation, which can make subjects pop in a way that looks more like a proper camera and less like a software filter. This is exactly why older Samsung flagships still get brought up in camera discussions. The Galaxy S9 and Galaxy S10 series used a dual aperture system, most famously switching between f1.5 and f2.4. It wasn't perfect, but it was one of those features that made Samsung cameras feel more camera-like. Then Samsung dropped it, largely because the company shifted focus toward ultra-high-resolution sensors and computational photography. But now, with the Galaxy S27 Ultra, Samsung might bring variable aperture back, and possibly in a more advanced form than before. Instead of only 2 settings, the new implementation could offer more than 2 aperture steps, giving the camera finer control across different lighting and scenes, and Samsung isn't alone here. Rumors also suggest Apple may introduce variable aperture in a future iPhone Pro model, which makes this even more interesting. If both companies are moving back toward physical camera control, that's a sign the smartphone camera race may be entering a new phase, where hardware features return to the spotlight. Not just AI and processing, but the Galaxy S27 Ultra leak doesn't end with variable aperture. Another major piece of the rumor is that Samsung could pair the 200MP sensor with LOFIC technology, short for lateral overflow integration capacitor. That sounds technical, but the benefit is simple: better dynamic range. Dynamic range is the difference between the brightest bright and the darkest dark a camera can capture in the same shot. It's the reason skies blow out white, shadows turn into black blobs, and bright signs at night lose detail. LOFIC is designed to help with exactly that. The basic idea is that pixels can only hold so much light before they overflow. With LOFIC, when a pixel reaches its limit, the extra charge can be stored in a capacitor rather than being lost. Then the imaging pipeline can use both the pixel data and the stored overflow data to preserve more highlight and shadow detail. In real world, terms that can mean more detail in clouds instead of a flat white sky, more texture in dark areas without turning everything into noise-cleaner high-contrast scenes like sunsets, night streets, and indoor shots near windows, better highlight control in video where blown highlights are especially noticeable, and this is where the combination gets exciting. If the Galaxy S27 Ultra main camera really does get both variable aperture and LOFIC, Samsung could improve two of the most important areas for flagship cameras: exposure control and depth rendering through aperture highlight, and shadow detail through dynamic range improvements. That's the kind of upgrade you can actually see, not just measure. Now let's address the other huge rumor. The triple camera change could mean Samsung is dropping the 3x telephoto lens. Since the Galaxy S22 Ultra, Samsung has consistently included a 10MP 3x telephoto camera. But the Galaxy S27 Ultra is rumored to remove that lens and rely on crop-based zoom from the high-resolution main sensor for mid-range zoom levels. On the surface, this sounds controversial, because people hear remove a camera and assume it's a downgrade, but the strategy could make sense if Samsung executes it correctly. A 200MP sensor gives the phone more room to crop into the center of the image while still maintaining decent detail. If Samsung's processing is strong enough, the phone could cover 2x and 3x ranges using the main sensor, and then jump to true optical zoom at 5x using the telephoto lens. The benefit is internal space, and that internal space could be used for features people also want, like better cooling, bigger battery, or one rumor that keeps coming up, built-in magnets for QE2.X wireless charging. Samsung adding QI2-style magnetic alignment could improve wireless charging convenience and accessory support, and removing one camera module could make that easier to fit without making the phone thicker than Samsung wants. So the potential Galaxy S27 Ultra camera redesign might not be about less camera. It might be about reorganizing the internals to improve the overall experience. Now, what about the front camera? So far, the Galaxy S27 series leaks don't give a clear answer, but there are a few possibilities being discussed. One is a straightforward upgrade, a larger, higher-resolution selfie sensor. That would be a welcome improvement for detail, low-light selfies, and front-facing video quality, especially as more people use their phones for content creation and video calls. Another rumor is more ambitious: a 3D face-scanning front camera system for improved security. If Samsung goes this route, it could bring Android closer to the kind of high-security facial authentication people associate with Face ID-style solutions. And there's also an interesting idea that Samsung could adopt a square-format selfie sensor, similar to Apple's approach. That could make framing more flexible and allow users to capture both portrait and landscape-friendly shots without constantly rotating the phone or cropping awkwardly. None of these front camera upgrades are confirmed, but if Samsung is truly aiming for a big Galaxy S27 Ultra camera leap, the selfie camera is one area that still has plenty of room to grow.